Could be coffee, could be wine. I'm not going to tell you. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Peach and Paige podcast. My name is Jenna, the owner and designer of Peach and Paige, and I'm coming to you today on the 23rd of August 2019 from a cold but very sunny Adelaide Hills in South Australia. I live here with my husband and my 3 kids, 2 of whom are at school today and the 3rd who is taking a nap at the moment, so fingers crossed we get through this before he wakes up. This is take number 8, I think. So this is taking a little bit longer than I expected. So we'll see how we go. I've never done anything like this before, so I do apologize if it's a little bit rocky or a little bit stop-start today, or I repeat myself. I do have show notes, so if you see me looking over there, that's why. Until I get used to doing this, probably a best idea to have notes rather than wing it and have awkward silences. So I apologize if that's distracting, and I also apologize for the glare on my glasses. Unavoidable. Without my glasses, I can't read my show notes. So once again, my name's Jenna, designer of Peach and Paige. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Facebook, Insta, Etsy, or of course my website. I sell crochet and knitting patterns, and also have just started selling yarn pegs. I guess I will probably start with the reason why I've started this podcast. So a few months ago, someone put up on Instagram a list of their favourite podcasts to watch. And I apologise, I don't know who it was that put that list up, but thank you, it's been great, life-changing. And yeah, so they put up a list of their favourite podcasts, and I'd never heard a podcast before. And so I jumped on YouTube, checked it out, and I've been hooked ever since. It's literally all I do. So watching more and more of these podcasts, I was like, well, this looks like a crap load of fun. Plus, I couldn't think of a more perfect way to get more involved in the yarn craft community, especially here in Australia. And it was really just the next organic step for my brand. So a bit about my brand, I suppose. I learned to knit and crochet as a little kid, and then picked it up again about 3 years ago, I'd say. All sort of self-taught again on YouTube, tutorials and things like that, and doing all made-to-order stuff, so booties and beanies and things like that. And I started with a few basic patterns and then decided basically to rewrite those patterns into, well, tweaking it into my own, adding my own design features and things like that. And before I knew it, I was pattern designing, even though I wasn't selling them. I was purely doing made to order. And then I met, through the crochet community, a lovely woman by the name of Yelena, who is now, you know, my absolute best friend in the world, and she told me that I should be selling my patterns. And I won't lie, I really didn't want to do it at first. My patterns were like my baby. They were sort of my little secret. I didn't want people to be able to get in on them. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that that was ridiculous. And quite frankly, there's, you know, it's a lot more time consuming to be doing make to order, as anyone that crochets or knits would know, than there is to be pattern making. And seeing as I was pattern making anyway, it just sort of made sense. And so I stood back from doing all the made to order stuff, and started selling my patterns. So that was about 9 months ago, I think, that I made the switch from made to order to patterns. And so it was, you know, coming into summer, and I wasn't getting many orders anyway, so it was a good time to do it. And since, in those 9 months, so I've sold probably about 1,500 patterns now over Etsy, Ravelry, and of course my website. I actually don't even know how many patterns I've got, probably about 20 maybe. And for those of you that are familiar, so pillows, beanies, gloves, all sorts, scarves, things like that. Mostly children's wear, although I am starting to expand now into doing adults wear. The reason I was really only doing children's wear is because when you're doing made to order, it's a lot quicker to make a baby beanie than an adult one. So that was really the only reason for it. It just logistically made sense. So now that I'm only pattern making, I can expand, do things that are a bit more intricate, a bit more time consuming, because I don't have to put a dollar value on how long it takes to actually make the item anymore, or take that into account. So with the podcast, so this is going to be a fortnightly podcast, I hope, assuming people tune in and people like it. And if you haven't sort of watched these sort of craft casts before, it's really just about seeing, I suppose, the person behind the brand. And it's also an opportunity just for me to share what I'm working on at the moment, whether it be personal crochet and craft projects, or whether it be Peach&Paige designs that are coming up, as well as sharing finished items, upcoming items, and anything else that's going on in my shop. So like selling my yarn pegs has been a new expansion to my store, which is going crazy. I'm literally spending all my time wrapping pegs at the moment. So got to work something out there. But thank you for all the love. I appreciate it. So it's just going to be about, running through that and getting to know me a little bit more, I suppose. The person behind the camera, you don't see my face on Instagram or Facebook very, very rarely. I'm not one to be in front of a camera, which seems really ironic right now, as I'm sitting here filming in my lounge room. This podcast obviously might be a little bit longer, so I'm sort of aiming probably for a 45-minute podcast. Obviously, this one's got a bit of a bigger intro, so it might go a little bit longer. That being said, I've got my script and I'm just going to follow it, and we'll see how long it takes. I could end up blowing way past that, or get 20 minutes in and be like, I have nothing else to say. Any patterns, yarns, people, any sort of things that I mentioned during this podcast, I will make sure that it is all written down underneath here. I'm probably going to also have some show notes up on my website. I'll see how I go. At the moment, I've pretty much only just got enough time for doing this eating, sleeping, and raising my kids at the moment. So if I get a spare couple of hours, I'll be sure to put a little bit of a blog up or a summary up on my website as well. I do also have a bit of a treat for everyone tuning in today. I'm not going to say yet because I'm a little bit mean like that. So stay tuned and watch the podcast, and at some point I will announce what that little surprise is for those of you that have decided to listen to me today. So I think that's about it for my intro. I hope you enjoy. Sit down, grab a beverage of choice. I've got mine. Could be coffee, could be wine. I'm not going to tell you. Grab your current work in progress. Let's have a chat. Again, don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoy the podcast today. And also feel free to leave comments of things that you want me to bring up in the next podcast, assuming I decide to put myself through this again. Okay, so I want to start off with finished items. So we will acknowledge the elephant in the room first of all and admire this beautiful piece that I'm wearing today, which I may have to take off soon because I'm starting to get rather toasty. So those of you that follow me on Instagram, this isn't a pattern that actually has been released yet. This is one that I'm working on. The more you get to know me, you'll soon know that I am a little bit all over the place, which most creative people are, I suppose, in that I have 50 things on the go at once. And thank God for my friend Yells that keeps me in line, because if she didn't, I don't think I'd finish anything or be where I am today, quite frankly. So this, I'll give you a bit of a better look. So this is my scarf, and it's a bit hard to see because I'm so close to the camera. I'll see if I can shimmy back a little bit here. Okay, so it's basically a giant triangle, effectively. Two-tone, very simple, effective design. with fillets and bubbles, as you can see. I've done this one out of Bendigo Woolen Mills luxury yarn. If you're in Australia, you'll know who they are. They're an Australian yarn supplier out of Bendigo in Victoria, I'm gonna say, and I'd love to go there, but a little bit away from where I live. For those of you that aren't familiar with Australia, we're about the size of the United States with just a whole lot of dirt in the middle. So yeah, this is one that I'm working on at the moment. I do hope to probably finish this pattern in the next month or so. It's actually really quite straightforward. So I'm thinking I'm going to do this one in an adult size, which is this one, also a kid size and a toddler size. And the sizing's really easy. It's simply just, you know, you work from one end, go down to your point and work back up. So for a smaller size, it's simply a case of not working as far down before you start going up again. Make a smaller triangle. So that is one I'm working on at the moment. Sorry, I don't have any links for that yet, but that's probably my main finished item. It's probably one of the few things I've made that I actually wear. Like I said, a lot of my stuff is children's wear, so I'm only just starting to venture into more adult items, and I've worn this one out and about quite a few times now, which is, it's lovely. It's really nice and soft. The Bendigo Woolen Mills luxury wool, so it's an 8-ply, it's a pure wool. It's not superwash. Actually, bear with me. I'll grab one of their other balls from my lovely yarn stash. Yes, this atrocity is placed in my lounge room. I have a very good husband. Okay, so this is one of their cakes, I suppose you'd call it. So Bendigo Woolen Mills. So this one, yeah, so it's 100% wool, 8-ply. So I don't think it's a merino, it's just a, I don't know, wool mix, assuming. But it does say that you can machine wash it on a gentle cycle. So it's not necessarily a hand wash, but probably not as hardy as like your super wash merinos and things like that. But it's beautiful, and I love that it comes in these giant cakes. These are 200-gram cakes, which is really nice because, especially now that I'm starting to make bigger stuff, I was really bad of just buying like one ball in every color, and I was getting stuck where I couldn't make anything because I didn't have enough yarn. Where these are good, so these are equivalent to like 4 of my little 50-gram merino balls that I usually use, so really handy. Huge color range as well, and the price, oh my god, they're like $15 for 200 grams, so that's 15 Australian dollars. So that's really good. That's for wool. That's like acrylic price. So it's beautiful, so soft. So my scarf was in, I think, I did write it down. Where did I write it down? Yeah, so this was in Frost, was the white, which is, it's actually a bit of an off-white. It's not white, but it's a nice natural white as opposed to like that artificially crisp white. And the grey was called, it was called Slate, was the grey. So beautiful. So I'm working one of these up in a baby pink colour. I don't have the tag, so I can't tell you what colour it was. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the second colour, but I'm going to make that for one of my daughters. So that'll be in the child size that I'm working up at the moment. Super, super easy pattern. I love bobbles. Anyone that knows my patterns, lots of bubbles. So yeah, that's one of my big finished items at the moment. Obviously going forward, when I mention finishing items, it will be the things that I finished in the last 2 weeks. Being my first podcast, I can't do that. So I'm just going to show you a couple of my latest things. But going forward, my finished items will generally be the whips from the previous podcast. I realised how thirsty I was going to get talking so much. On the plus side, my son hasn't woken up yet, so we're good. So yeah, as I mentioned briefly before, this is my yarn stash. I was going to organise it before the podcast today, as a working mum of 3, I say I'm going to do a lot of things, but I don't. So I didn't get to tidy it up. So it is a bit of a mess. But it's got pride of place in our lounge room. So I do quite love my yarn stash, though it does need plumping up at the moment. I'm going to be stocking up very soon on some more yarn for yarn pegs, and that's going to involve about 100 odd balls of yarn. So this will be shockers, possibly in a few podcasts time. The next finished item I wanted to show today was my biggest selling pattern to date. I should have actually done the stats. I don't know how many of these I've sold, but it's by far the above and beyond any other pattern I've done. And that's my leopard print beanie. So for those of you that are fans of mine, you would be completely all over these beanies. This is them. I do apologize. On my finished items, if you see ends not weaved in, that's because I don't sell these. I just keep them as samples. And so for the sake of samples and photos, if I can just tuck the ends in, I will, rather than actually waste my time trying to put them in. So I do apologize. There was a little end hanging out there. I'll show you this side because there's a bit of a seam there. So this is my leopard print beanie. So these are crochet, obviously, with some lovely little fur pom-poms. They're actually a fold back brim. So the brim on it is quite long. There's my little ends there. I'll just tuck that up there with my thumb. So they are a fold back brim, which makes it nice and thick. So a nice crochet rib, and it's all single crochet. And on my pattern, there's a chart which will tell you when to change color. So it's literally a case of carrying the 3 colors along with you, following the chart. And when the chart changes color, that's when you will crochet with another color. My pattern also has step-by-step instructions on how to get really nice, neat color changes too. Few, I suppose, design elements to take into account with these beanies. So they're brim up as opposed to top down like a lot of my other beanies. They are quite thick and sturdy because you're carrying 3 strands of yarn, plus it's all single crochet. So it's quite a thick, sturdy fabric that it creates. But it's really quite simple. They're just incredibly time consuming. Like, this is not a, one evening job. It does take some time. So I've got them in a few different colors and sizes. So that was, I think that was 6 to 12 months, I think. This is 6 to 12 months. Maybe that was 3 to 6. I don't know. I need to put tags on my stuff. I just keep them for photos. So that was the next size up, which was in the white and grey. Once again, please ignore my yarn ends. I realise now I'm going to have to start tucking them in, aren't I? Oh dear. Okay, so that was the next size up. So I'll see if it will focus and give you a bit of a better look at it's really effective, but when you actually break it down, all it is single crochet, carrying your 3 yarns across. And then the one that I made for my daughter, which you've probably seen some photos of, I don't know, I'll fold the brim up so you can see what it's meant to look like. So this is the, what size? 5 to 10, I think is the sizing for this one. 5 to 10 years. So it's exactly the same as last time, but because it's generally made of 3 colors, your back color and then your 2 spot colors. For one of my middle spot color, I used a variegated yarn. The yarn that I used is actually a really cheap yarn from Spotlight, which if you're in Australia, you'll be familiar with. I don't think they sell them anymore because they're getting rid of the Marvel line. It really is. It's nasty acrylic. It's horrible stuff. I don't know how anyone uses it. But for the sake of the dots, because it's not the main fabric, it really didn't matter if I was using a quality fabric as long as it looked nice. So that was actually the yarn that I used. Yeah, so it's cheap Marvel acrylic, couple bucks a ball. but it looks really nice. In the camera you can't see, but there's actually quite a bit of purple in between in the color changes. I'll see if it will focus. You might be able to see a bit better. There's a little bit of purple in between the color changes, and so it looks like it's just pink and blue, but there is actually quite a bit of purple in there. It's just not really showing up on the camera. But yeah, beautiful pattern. I'll put the links below. I think for the main color I used, this was the white again, the frost in the Bendigo Woolen Mills, which is beautiful. And for the spots, it's literally just stuff out of my stash, because the spots aren't the main fabric in this. So you can just, it's a really good stash buster. If you've got some yarn and you don't need much even for the bigger sizes, you only need maybe 50 grams. It's a really good stash buster. If you got yarn that you just can't get rid of or can't find a project for, or you don't have enough, great for the spots on this. And like I said, it doesn't really matter what it's made out of, as long as it's roughly the same ply, you'll be fine. And that's all 8 ply too, by the way. Oh, and pom-poms, in case you're wondering, eBay. Simple as that, eBay. And lastly, for finished items, and I'm really surprised with how well I've gone, so I'm now 20 minutes in, so I'm actually pretty on track. So far so good. So the last finished item, sort of finished, sort of not, is my leg warmers, which another pattern I've been working on, and I keep promising that I'm going to release, and then I don't. I will release it. Bear with me. I need a drink. I'm getting parched. Leg warmers. So, if you've seen these on my Instagram page, look at it. Oh, look at it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Hold on, I'll see if it will, is it focusing? There we go, it's focusing. Look at those stitches. The reason that this pattern has taken so long, I don't know if any of you have made cables before, like the cabling in crochet. It's not hard. It's really not hard. What is hard, however, is trying to put the instructions into words. I've spent ages taking photos and writing descriptions and trying to explain how to do it, which has been really difficult. And I think I've done probably as good of a job as I can do. But now that I've got this channel, what I'm probably going to do when I do release this pattern is actually put a video up of how to do just the cable. So it will be a free pattern, but it will only show you the cabling part. So for the full pattern and the sizing and the ribbing and everything else, you'd still need to purchase the pattern, but it'll at least give you a video of how to do that cabling, because it really is, it's not a complicated stitch, but it's really hard to explain without actually showing you in motion in video how to do it. So I've literally written pages of instructions trying to break it down, but I will have to do a video, I think, for the cable to really be able to explain how to do it. One thing I pride myself on with all my patterns is that I'm very, I probably over explain things a little bit. For those of you that have bought my patterns, they are very, there is a lot of information in there. My patterns are not little one-page patterns. I put heaps of photos in, heaps of steps in, you know, any certain types of stitches. There'll be separate sections on how to do those stitches. My patterns are really detailed, very detailed patterns. And that's something I take pride in. So as much as I could easily just whip up a pattern for these, if you didn't already have the experience or had done these sort of cables before, those instructions just are not going to make sense to you. So that's why I think I'm going to do them up as a video. So I've got 2 sizes finished at the moment. So those are itty bitty little, I think 3 to 6 months. 6 to 12 months, I'm not sure. And these are 1 to 2 years. I know this because they fit my son. Lucky for me, he's too young to realize that I'm putting fluffy purple leg warmers on him. They do look so cute. The pattern itself is really quite simple. Like I said, the cable's the hardest part, and if you know how to do the cables, they're really easy. It's actually worked flat, not in the round. Reason being is that working in the round, the cables just don't look quite as good. Plus, for anyone that crochets in the round, you would know that your pattern slowly starts to sort of veer off to one side when you work in the round, or your seam won't be center. So for something like this, I really needed a center seam, and I needed to make sure that my cabling stayed vertical without having to keep adjusting it or moving it over, which is why I decided I would actually make these flat and then seam them together. So with these, they worked flat. I don't want to give you too many details because, I want you to buy the pattern, but they worked flat, sewn together. The ribbing's done, and for the tie, there's just 2 little holes, and it just folds back for the little tie, and my little pom-poms, which are very cute. I'm getting better at making pom-poms. Not great, but better. So they're somewhat finished, getting there. I'm making them bigger sizes, so these are going to be literally all the way from baby size to adult size. I'm in the process of making myself some. I won't show you. The tricky thing with the adult sizing is that adults come in so many different shapes and sizes. So it will be sort of a bit of an average. You may need to tweak them a little bit to fit you. But if you're using a nice yarn with a bit of stretch in it, yarn with a bit of nylon in it, like an 8-ply sock yarn or something, you'll find that fit's going to be a little bit better. I know I'm still meant to be talking about finished objects, and this one is not by any means finished, but it's close enough. So this is the ones that I'm making for my daughter. So these are size, I think 7 to 10. And the cabling doesn't show quite as well. It's amazing how different it is with the yarn. So this is Peyton's Baby. What is it? Peyton's, it's Baby Soft 8-ply or something, and it's a nylon acrylic blend. So it's super soft, but it certainly doesn't have quite as good a stitch definition as some of the others. The other 2 I showed you, so that one is, this is pure superwash merino. So expensive as shit, but beautiful. And you can the stitch definition is just, there's no comparison. It's beautiful. And I actually got that, so that's the yarn there. So it's Debbie Bliss's, what is it? Rialto DK. So I got that off of Lovecraft, which is where I get most of my yarn. Does it tell me the colour? No, just the dye lot. I can't remember what colour this is, and it doesn't tell me. But I got it on special. It was $3-4 for 50 grams. But the leg warmers do use a bit of yarn. So especially the bigger ones, like for this, to do this in pure merino, unless you got it on like really cheap, it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg warmer. And this, I have to talk about this yarn. So this yarn, if you can see it, so I got this from a yarn festival here in Adelaide, and it was made by who was it? Pearl and Friends? Oh, I'm right. I'm gonna write it down here. It's here. Whoever this is who did it. I don't know the colorway. When I was doing this, I wasn't intending on doing a podcast. So I didn't keep track of my labels. I'm a shocker for just chucking labels. Now that I'm doing my podcast, I'm going to have to remember to actually keep some. It literally looks like what I would imagine unicorn poo to look like. It's beautiful. It's stunning. Superwash merino 8-ply. Oh. I'll show you the ball. I've got the ball too. I'm getting a yarn winder, so at the moment I just wind by hand. So my balls aren't overly neat, but you get the idea. I hope it does. It's hard to see. It's so subtle. Like there's just these really muted, pastel-y, dusty greens, purples, pinks. Like it's so stunning. And for a pattern like this that's really highly textured, you don't want a yarn that's got too much color change in it, because you're not going to be able to see the cables. It's going to take away from it. So I wanted something that was a bit different than just a straight color, but it needed to be really a real simple color change to make sure that those cables still showed up as nicely as they do. I mean, look at that, it's beautiful. Not to toot my own horn, but that's just, oh, look at that, so pretty, so pretty. So yeah, so that is a pattern I'm working on. Was hoping to get it done by the end of August. My friends want me to get it done by the end of August. I'm going to see how I go, because I now need to do the video tutorial. That being said, once I write up one size, it's really easy for me to write up the others. So we'll see. I'm working on it. I promise. Unfortunately, for those of you in Australia, where we're coming into summer, this might be a next year project. And for my fans in the US and the UK, hopefully we'll get this out in time for you to start stocking up for winter this year. So I think that was it for finished objects. I'm going to pause the camera for a sec because I need to get another drink and catch my breath, and then we will come back for whips and other stuff. So these are my gloves. The link to the pattern will be down there. So these gloves are, these are knit. I don't make a lot of knit patterns. I'm a lot more confident at crocheting. I find the patterns are a lot easier to write up and a lot quicker to write up, so I don't do a lot of knit patterns, but this is one of the few knit patterns that I have, and they actually look stunning on, and they're such a simple glove. Other than, obviously you've got your stockinette stitch, but then it's reverse stockinette for a few rows. You've got your ribbing. I use stretchy cast on, stretchy casts off. I use the Italian, what's called the Italian cast on? Might be a bit more detailed than that. Italian something. And it's a super stretchy 1x1 rib cast on, though you can, there is some tutorials on how to turn it into a 2x2 as well. But it's a brilliant stretchy cast on. I love it. I use it for all my beanies and everything. And then a cast off, can't remember what it's called. It's finished off with a Kitchener stitch. Can't remember what the bind off is, but I don't think I did this one quite right. Sometimes I don't know what I do wrong. Sometimes I think I miss a step. Sometimes they come out perfect, and then other times they quite don't. This one isn't quite right. It's not very stretchy, whereas normally they're really stretchy. But yeah, beautiful little gloves. And how stunning is this fabric? So this is an 8-ply superwash merino by the Australian Wool Store, and the color is Charlotte's Rose, if I remember correctly, and that's it, just handballed. Just a really nice, pretty rose and white colorway, and then there's a few little specks of like, let me see if I can show you. There's a few little sort of specks of green. See there? Some little, yeah, just little specks of green in there just to sort of break it up a little bit. And you can see it better on the fabric as well. Those little specks of like green and brown to break it up. So it really is a stunning color. And I was gifted this by my friend to make her daughter some gloves. And so I made her, she's got 2 daughters. I made her younger daughter some gloves using another shade, I think it was called Jelly Bean. Also from the Australian Wool store, I'm pretty sure, and gifted them to her. And her older daughter, who I was making these for, stole them. And naturally, as you're aware, gloves, very stretchy. So even though these are a size bigger, the smaller size still fit her. So I don't know now whether I should finish these gloves, seeing as she's already stolen the smaller ones, or frog them. Because I don't want them to go to waste, because it's stunning yarn. But I want to gift something to her because she gifted me the yarn in the first place, so I didn't really pay for it. So I've got to work out what I'm going to do. But I finished one, and I have started the second. I do all my in the rounds using Magic Loop. These are Knit Pros, 4mm Knit Pro. And yeah, so I use Magic Loop all the time, trying to find cables that fit your project exactly is near impossible. It's just easy to have a good set of cables, and Magic Loop, once you know how to do it, is the easiest thing ever. So I've really only ever done Magic Loop. So yeah, cast it on my second pair, but I've sort of put it aside because I don't have the motivation to finish it now that she's already stolen the gloves from her sister. I mean, I guess I could always gift these to the younger sister. They might just be a little bit big. But here in Australia, we're in August now. So we're about to come into spring. So I suppose she won't need them till next winter anyway, when they might fit her. But she's a tiny little doll. So she doesn't seem to be growing anywhere anytime soon. But we'll see. So that is that. And last but not least, if I knew how long this was going to take, I probably would have cut this down a little bit and saved some for next week. I'm going to end up with a 1-hour blog this week and a 15-minute one in a fortnight's time. Anywho, so lastly, you may have seen these on my Instagram if you follow me. So these are plain vanilla socks. I've never completed a pair of vanilla socks. Like I said, I'm more of a crochet than a knitter. Not that I can't knit. I find knitting is, you get instant gratification out of knitting, which you don't tend to get, out of crochet, that you don't tend to get out of knitting. Because knitting is so much more time consuming. It may be because I'm not very fast at it yet. Maybe when I get faster, I'll be better. But for the time being, it takes me so long to make something that it takes the joy out of it, I suppose. But these are just plain vanilla socks. Now, I used the tutorial from one of my favorite podcasters, Nitty Natty. I'll put the link down here. So she's done a tutorial for both toe up and cuff down socks, step by step, plain straight vanilla socks, which is what I've followed for these. So I've done Judy's Magic Cast On for my toe. Worked up to 60 stitches across. I've got a really small foot. I've got a size 6 foot. That being said, I think I did 60 stitches around and on a 2.25 hook, which is probably a bit small. Generally, people will go up to a 2.5, or they'll do 64 stitches around on a 2.25. So I've done 60 stitches around on a 2.25. So they are a bit tight, but I have a small foot and I know they're probably going to block out quite large. So they'll be fine, but I think next time I'm either going to go upper hook size or do a 64 stitch sock as opposed to a 60 stitch sock. Blech. My foot length, I think, was like 70, which shows how small these stitches are because I've only got a size 6 foot and most people only have about a 60 row foot. These are a 70 row foot. Just to fit me. And then you can see there it's a bit hard because of the yarn I've used. Excuse my little stitch marker, but that's my waste yarn in there for my afterthought heel. Clearly I need a drink of water because I'm getting all tongue-tied. Yeah, Nitty Natty does great tutorials, really straightforward, really simple, step by step. So this has been a great little project because it's one I don't have to think about. And again, it's nice doing something where I'm not trying to write the pattern at the same time. I can just mindlessly knit. Oh, by the way, so these are my stitch markers that I've been using at the moment. I'm in desperate need of new stitch markers. If you know anywhere in Australia that sells cool stitch markers, like little polymer clay stitch markers, please send me a link because I really want some. And all the ones on like Etsy and stuff are from the other side of the world, and shipping costs more than the stitch markers. So I really want to start like, even if it's just one of each, I really want to start a nice little collection of cool little stitch markers, like even like the little polymer clay ones. So if you know any brands or places that do them, please send me a link to their shop because I'll probably stock up and then show them off here. So they're my socks. Oh, the yarn. So this yarn is a 4-ply sock, so a merino nylon blend. I don't know what the composition percentages are because I don't have the label anymore. Once again, chuck the label. Didn't think I'd be doing a podcast. I also don't know the colorway. I have had a look on their Instagram and I have a feeling it might be Sunshine After the Rain, something along those lines. So the brand is Finch Yarns here in Adelaide. So beautiful colorway. Give you another quick look at that. A nice rainbow with grey on the other side. And I'll show you it balled up as well. It looked amazing in the skein. So that's it. Oh, here we go. That's it balled up. Very bright, very vibrant. Not generally what I'd go for. I really like my pastels and stuff, which is funny because looking at me, you'd think I'd like vibrant stuff. But I quite like them, and they'll be my first pair of socks. And my husband's already requesting a pair, so but then he saw how long they were taking me to make. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Well, we'll see. Maybe for your birthday next May. We'll see how we go. So yeah, that's about it for whips that I want to show you. I've got a few other things, but I'll keep them for next week, I think, or next fortnight. Okay, so finished objects and whips done. So I just want to have a quick chat about shop stuff. So basically, just a bit of an update on things that are going on with the shop. So those of you that follow me would know that I'm now doing yarn pegs. So at the moment, I'm just doing paint box acrylic, which is a 8-ply acrylic. It's a cheaper acrylic, so it's only like $3-4 a ball. But it's beautiful compared to using like the Marvel and stuff that you get here at Spotlight in the craft stores. There's no comparison. Few notes with paint box, I suppose. I don't think it's as bad now. I don't know if they've changed. I know when I first got paint box, it's very they're 8-ply. It's not so much thin, but when you work it up, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's looking at it, it's not thin, but it's quite airy. So when you work it, it ends up working out quite thin. So I found when I was first, like some of my first designs, which I designed using Marvel, which is the opposite. It's a really thick, sturdy 8-ply. And so using those same patterns that I wrote for my Marvel, for my paint box, the sizing was so far out. Because yeah, paint box works up a lot smaller. So I would actually use the 10-ply or the Iran worsted weight paint box for 8-ply patterns. So I'd sort of go up a size in the yarn weight. But since doing their yarn pegs and getting a lot more of their stock in, I think they might have actually plumped it up. I find it's not nearly as thin as I used to find it. It's not quite as dense, I suppose. Yeah, dense is a good word. It's not as dense as this Stylecraft, but it's a lot better than it was. It doesn't feel cheap and empty. It's nice yarn, and it feels amazing. It feels stunning. It's so soft. So yeah, I've released yarn pegs. My yarn pegs are, so they're only a set of 50. So paint box is, you can only get it through lovecrafts.com. There's nowhere else that sells it. I don't know, obviously they've got some agreement there or what have you, but if you go onto the paint box website, they actually have 60 shades. But I've found on Love Crafts, which is the only place you can buy it, they will often only show 50 shades. And even in those, some of them are unavailable. So they don't seem to ever stock or show the whole set. So my boxes have got 50. If they ever do re-release some of the other ones, so I think there was 4 neon ones that they didn't release for like 6 months, a year. But I've started seeing them occasionally pop up again. So as soon as I get those, I will obviously add them to my sets going forward, with a slightly increased price, obviously, because there's extra pegs in there. And for those that have already bought my pegs, if you do want some of these extra ones, by all means, I will put an offer up. They won't cost much because I'll be able to send them as a letter here in Australia anyway. So I'll keep you guys posted if I do get my hands on those other ones, or they decide to re-release them. I'll be sure to get my hands on them and offer them as top-up sets, for those of you that have already bought my sets. So yeah, so there's 50 at the moment. You get them in a little box that looks like this. Here's the tissue paper. This is my box. It's a little bit worse for wear now. And inside, so that you'll get your yarn chart, which has got they're the 50 colors that I've currently got in there, and all your yarn pegs. If you're expecting to get your box and all your yarn pegs are lined up beautifully and neatly, you're kidding yourself, because in the post you just need to give them a jiggle and they go everywhere. I tried. I was going to pack them neatly and color code them and have them all nice and neat and laying flat. It doesn't work in the post. They just jumble around, so they just get put in the box. But they're great. I never used yarn pegs before. Since using them, oh my god, it's amazing. Being able to actually see your colors together, and especially if someone like me, where my yarn stash is probably soon going to get out of control and outgrow my lounge room, and I may need to start storing some of my yarn away, which means having these means that I can find my colors without having to go into storage and pull yarn out and try everything out. I can work out exactly what colors I need and then go find them. So they're going to be really handy. At the moment, I've just done the paint box ones. I've just ordered the full set of Stylecraft Baltic. Excuse my pronunciation if it's not correct. So there's 19 shades. It's sort of like Sheepy's Stonewash. It's a color and white, so it sort of looks like it's been faded, I suppose. So there's 19 shades. So I've bought the full set of those, which I'm going to offer as yarn pegs if anyone wants the full set of the Baltics. And then I do intend on doing a full set of Stylecraft. I know you guys have been hassling me, but there's like 80-90 colors, and that's a lot of wool that I gotta buy and a lot of pegs to wrap. So I haven't got around to doing that yet, but I have all intentions to, because I know you guys want it. I know there's no one else that does it, in Australia anyway. So I'm more than happy to do it for the right price. I'll do it. So that's what's happening with the pegs. So I do still have free shipping. There's only, like, as I film this, about 4 left. So I was doing free shipping on the first 20 boxes. I've sold 17. So, and that being said, I've sold about 3 just today. I'm not intending on putting this YouTube up for another 2 days. So it's quite possible that by the time you actually read this, that my free shipping will be over. But if not, you may still be in a chance for free shipping. Otherwise, shipping will be going up to $8, which is, it is what it is, unfortunately. So that's yarn pegs. What else have I got coming up? So I've got, hopefully, like I said, by the end of this month, I'm hoping to release my pattern for my leg warmers. We'll see how we go. I need to do a video tutorial now, which is going to take a lot more time. And I've had a massive influx of yarn peg orders all of a sudden, which is taking up a lot of my time. So it may not get done until next month. Alternatively, I may release my scarf pattern instead, because that's going to be a lot quicker for me to do. Rather than make you guys wait ages for a new pattern, I may release this one and do the leg warmers after. That's what I'm thinking. So that's what's going to be happening with the shop. Other business. So I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that I was going to have a little surprise for you guys that stayed and listened. So unless you were smart enough to skip through to this part, I'm assuming you have listened to the whole thing up until now. So what I'm going to be doing is putting a 50% off code on all my patterns, only on my website, not Etsy, on my website. Reason being is I don't get charged fees on my website as opposed to Etsy, so I would much rather you buy them from here. So there'll be 50% off with a code. The code is podcast50. Common sense. Podcast50. You will need that code to get 50% off only at my website, not Etsy, not Ravelry, just on my website. Put the code in, 50% off, only for patterns, does not include yarn pegs. I barely make enough money on them as it is, let alone doing them for half price. That code will only be available until my next podcast in 2 weeks' time. So it's now the 23rd of August. I can't do the maths, but 2 weeks from now, when I do my next podcast is when that code will end. So I apologize if you're watching this further down the track and you've missed out. But for those of you that are tuning in as soon as I've released this, you've got 50% off for the next 2 weeks as a thank you. So that's what I wanted to give you. What else is there? So I think I don't think I want to go too much longer. We've done a pretty good podcast. I don't want to drag this out too long. I just wanted to sort of spend a little bit of time, I guess, just talking about me a bit more. Like I said, I'm married. I have 3 kids. So I've got a 9-year-old daughter, Talia, and I've got a 7-year-old daughter called Paige. It's hard to keep up. And I have a 2-year-old son called Eli. So as I mentioned before, Eli is asleep, having a nap at the moment. He's actually managed to last this whole time. He's usually pretty good. He naps for like 3 hours. So I knew I was pretty safe. And my 2 eldest are obviously at school today. So for those of you that are in Australia, I'm pretty sure it's Australia-wide or any South Australia, we've got Book Week this week. So it's a school-based initiative, I suppose, where it's Book Week. You spend the whole week celebrating books. But every school will generally do a parade or an assembly where all the kids dress up as their favourite characters. So here on Facebook at the moment, it's all you're seeing. All parents are putting up, posts of their kids. So naturally, I'm going to do the exact same thing and insert a picture of my kids right here. And they are my 2 daughters. So my youngest decided she was going to dress up as Tara from Teen Titans. So if any of you are familiar with Teen Titans, the comic / now kids show, Tara is, I think she's the sister of one of the main characters. I don't know. I don't watch it. So she's dressed up as that. Full disclosure, completely reused that costume. She had a Teen Titans birthday party back in November and that was her costume. So Tara it is. And then for my eldest, she was also going to dress up as one of the Teen Titans because she already had a costume. And I'm cheap and don't have enough time on my hands. But we couldn't find a second Teen Titans book. And you really need to take a book with you to show that you're actually dressing up as someone from a book. So we were only able to find one Teen Titans book at the library because the second one, it showed it was there. It was missing. The librarian, she's looking everywhere for it. She's, we're pulling books off shelves. No, couldn't find it anyway. So we had to go with plan B. She's only really just started reading novels as a 9-year-old. Like, she's always liked little kid books, but she's starting to get to an age now where she'll actually lie in bed and read novels. And so she got the full book set of Goosebump books from her grandpa at Christmas, and she's just started to getting into them. Anyway, so the theme for Book Week this year, I should have mentioned that there's always a theme that they want you to try stick to. So this year's theme was reading is my superpower. So obviously what they were getting at is the themes meant to be about magic, superpower, those sort of characters. And so we're going through her Goosebump book. She's got the full book set, and one of the book sets, and I wish I'd jotted down what it was called, but it had something to do with superpowers on the front. I'll write it down here. Yeah, that's the book, that one there. And the front page of that book was this. And I thought, I think we might be able to pull that off. So I scrounged through, found a skirt that's just below the knees on me. And luckily, because she's 9 now, I was able to put that skirt on her, wrap the ties around her waist nice and tight, and it fits her as a nice floor length sort of skirt. Pulled out some old scarves and stuff I had tucked away in the back of a drawer. Slapped some crazy old lady makeup on her and a eyeliner mole, and bunch of hippy dippy sort of earrings and jewelry and what have you. My husband has one of some weird juggling magic ball thing, which looked great as like a fortune teller ball. And Bob's your uncle. We had a costume, so that survived for another year, thank God. So that was today. They had their parade, so I went to the school today to watch that, which is very interesting, trying to sit down and watch an assembly with a toddler on your lap who's at that age where he quite literally refuses to sit still and will chuck a tanty if you try and make him. Lucky for me, he loves watching Netflix on my phone. So he was just watching Peppa Pig and Thomas and things like that, and I was able to keep him quiet for half an hour, 45 minutes during the assembly. That was all good. What else is going on at the moment? My little sister turned 26 last weekend, and because I didn't know what to get her for her birthday, so I told her that I would take her out to dinner. So I'm going to be taking her out to dinner tonight, which worked out well because normally I don't put makeup and stuff on a Friday. But knowing that I had to make myself look half presentable for this podcast, and knowing that I'm going out later, 2 birds, 1 stone. So going out to dinner with her in town, and then going to a nightclub to watch some rock and roll band. My sister and her partner and my parents are very much into the all the rock and roll 50s rockabilly type stuff, and so there's some band playing in town. So I'll go there, check that out for a bit, and I think I'm meeting my mum and my sister's partner there. So doing that, and that's going to be my weekend, and then sort of editing all this up tomorrow to put up on YouTube on Sunday. Yep. And yeah, I think that's about it. I work 4 days a week, and by work I mean like a 9 to 5 work. So I won't say where, but I work for an insurance company as an underwriter. So I do enjoy that. I really enjoy that. It's there's a lot of problem solving and complex tasks to do, and it keeps me on my toes, I think. I have this as my creative outlet, but that's sort of more my intellectual outlet, I think. And there's the social side to it as well. I've the best team. I love all of them. So that helps, just catching up with people and building those social friendships as well. I think is really important, especially when you're a mum. It's really easy to sort of get stuck at home or stuck in a rut and feel a bit sort of out of it. So work is a bit of my saviour, as much as it takes away from obviously my crafting time. I think I need it, or I would just turn into some insane crafter. I don't know. So I think that's about it. We've done really well. First podcast, I've done it. I only had to hit pause once or twice, I think. Thank you so much if you're actually still listening to me blabber on. Once again, please hit subscribe. I will be back in 2 weeks. Next podcast probably won't be quite as long. If you're sitting here going, oh my God, when's she gonna shut up? It will be a bit shorter, but I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the feedback and seeing if people actually bother to tune in and watch this. And seeing what they think. So again, any patterns or yarns I mentioned today, all down below. If I do decide to put show notes as well on my website, I'll make sure to mention it on Instagram or Facebook that I'm doing that as well, so you're aware. And I really hope to see you all next time. Bye.